Today we're going to be covering the first of many Dark Souls comic books that have come out to help further explore the universe of Dark Souls. Now this was originally on our gaming channel, but as I've said in other gaming videos that we have moved over, we are attempting to move these videos over to Comicstorian where they belong with the rest of the comic books. The Dark Souls series is an interesting series of comic books that further explores the lore and ideas behind the Dark Souls universe. Now this first comic, which is brought to you by Titan Comics, is just called Dark Souls, but there are 3 other stories already out with more on the way. If you're wondering, Titan Comics are also the individuals who bring you the Doctor Who comics and the Assassin's Creed comics, and they are doing an amazing job of helping your fandoms gain a much larger life as their lore is expanded upon. Let's begin Dark Souls. In the beginning, during the Age of Fire, the breath of the worm-kind Andalus made Ishra flourish. With the dawning of man, though, came the dawning of the Undying, and some would spread throughout Ishra to bring decay on the land. As the lands began to fall to this plague, Baron Karamis learned of the dragon's long-forgotten secret that once slain its dying breath would usher forth life once again. Karamis hunted out Andalus at the edges of Ishra and was victorious in his battle, but as the dragon lay dying, he learned something else, that there was something else to replace the fire. Now cursed to burn forever for the damnation that he brought, Karamis fled, leaving the lands to rot and allow the Age of Fire to reach its final days. Fira, a female knight, awakens from a nightmare of death, but for her there is something worse. There's something affected by the undying curse. Fira draws her sword to the scryer Aldrich, not knowing of him, but it is because of the curse that is slowly leeching her memories that she has forgotten him. Aldrich shows her a puppet that she gave him to prove that he really knows her, to bring her back to this reality. And once she regains her senses, Fira asks, "Where is here anyway?" And Aldrich tells her the Crystalline Labyrinth. They are here to claim the sacred tooth of Andalus from the dragon Agrir. Soon the two would enter the labyrinth, and as they enter, a skeleton would begin to rise. Fira quickly pulls out her sword, and with one swing, it lobs the head of it off. They continue on. Aldrich warns her that in this labyrinth, the dragon Agrir is a master of trickery and illusion. It is said that the caverns serve as mirrors, reflecting one's soul. Fira stops as she begins to see visions of what has happened and what she has become. And as she looks at her hand, she sees all of the blood that she has spilled. Aldrich tells her that Agrir is using her thoughts against her. She must fight it. And off in the distance, Fira then sees her son Peter running away, and she begins to chase after him. As she turns the corner, though, she sees a knight stand before her, telling her that she is not fit to wear that armor. She abandoned them when their order fell to the hoards. The knight begins to attack her, knocking her to her knees, but during the struggle, Fira tells him that he is nothing more than a pale imitation of who he once was. She strikes the knight back, and then she throws her sword, hitting one of the crystal pillars, causing it to fall on the knight. And once it lands, the knight shatters into tiny crystal shards, and Aldrich appears, stating that they must continue on. Deeper in the labyrinth they go until they finally reach the doorway of the dragon Agrir. Fira steps into the inner chambers, but before her sits Agrir, telling her that her mind is open to him like a flower in bloom. He sees what she has done. She is no creature of light. She is walking death. As she stands, she tells him that he speaks only to distract her, while his minions carry out his orders. And behind her, Aldrich sneaks up holding a knife. Before he can stab her, though, Fira thrusts her sword back into him, and then he begins to shatter into tiny crystal shards. Agrir says that she will feel the bite of Andalus and lunges at her, stabbing into her shoulder. Fira tries to attack, but Agrir holds his shield, blocking her attacks, and he pushes her down, dropping her sword. Agrir stands over her, holding the knife ready to stab down on her, and then Aldrich grabs him and stabs him in the neck. Once the body falls, Fira takes the dagger, and Aldrich asks how did she know that it wasn't the real him, and she tells him she didn't. "Ah," Aldrich says, "our journey has just begun, and our next stop will be to meet the Everlord of the Weeping Forest." They begin their travels, and once reaching the forest, Aldrich performs his rituals to seek out the next relic. They will go see the Everlord. His sword is made from the dragon's bone. Before leaving, though, Fira asks him to forgive her questions as her memory wanes. She must know again what these rituals are for. Aldrich says to understand the ritual, one must understand the legend. Does she recall Baron Karamis? She tells him that he was a great hero, champion of her order, and he tells her yes, but there's more. Karamis sought to try and stop this plague affecting them by slaying Andalus, and was successful. Through the Worm King's dying breath, the land was reborn, but now the land is falling back, and they need to bring Andalus back for his breath to bring back the life. Andalus's carcass was made into relics from its bone, and now they need to seek those relics. Fira then asks, will everything be restored? Haramark, our kin, my order? And Aldrich tells her, yes, it is so. The two press on through the forest, and they find a large spider web, and behind it they hear scratching noises. Fira cuts down the webbing and sees giant monstrous spiders waiting for her, and she starts to kill them, but then she hears Aldrich call out to her as he is taken into one of the spiders' mouths. She goes to kill what spiders are left, and then she chases towards the one that took Aldrich into their cave, and once she gets inside, she sees two more spiders and the one carrying Aldrich, and she calls out to Aldrich, telling him that he better be alive inside of there. The two spiders attack, and then using a bone that she picked up, Fira locks one of the spiders' mouths in place while slicing through another. Once the spider snaps through the bone, she then turns, thrusting her sword upwards into its mouth. She then turns over to Aldrich and starts to remove the webbing, telling him that he can't be gone. She is blind without him. He is her only memory. But as the webs come off, Aldrich asks, "What did you say?" And she tells him, "Nothing. We are leaving." The two begin to hear loud thuds, and Aldrich says the Everlord is coming, and then before them, the giant creature stands, wielding its sword. The Everlord slams his greatsword down, and Fira has to jump, pushing Aldrich out of the way, and then she gets back up to fight. Fira leaps at the Everlord, but is easily knocked away, and then he walks over, striking down at her. She manages to roll out of the way and swings back, and the two swords meet, but Fira pushes him back, stabbing into his chest. The Everlord then begins to laugh as Fira jumps up to attack again, and she tells him, "Laugh while you can." With a powerful swing down, the Everlord's head then flies through the air, and then Aldrich calls out to Fira. Even though she cut off its head, he still managed to stab her. And now she sees herself long ago sitting by a fire in her home. Her daughter Elise comes over to her, telling her that she slept for so long, it's time to get up and come outside. And she asks for what reason. As Elise runs outside into the burning pits of bodies, she says that it's time to watch them burn. Fira wakes up screaming, and she looks around to see that she's not dead. She looks at a reflection of herself, and she sees what she's becoming, and throws the piece of armor away. The curse cheats her from a true death. Her memories stir in her decaying mind, and she must follow her path and finish what was started. As she gets up, she sees Aldrich is gone, maybe fled with the relics, and then she looks to see that there are signs of a struggle as his ritual remains in place. As Fira travels to where they were heading to next, battling through the mountains, slaying all of those who stand in her way, she arrives upon a Korth castle, and she continues killing everything. Once inside, she begins looking for Aldrich until she overhears a witch telling Aldrich that he will not rest until the Phoenix King has his answers. Inside a cell, Aldrich writes on the walls for the witch, but Fira enters, telling him to stand aside. The witch calls out, referring to Fira as a creature of death. She sees the dark sign in her. Soon the rot will claim her mind as it has her body. The witch starts to cast her magic on Fira, and with one swing, the witch's head falls off, and Fira tells her silence. Fira continues looking at the walls, stating that he's been busy, and Aldrich asks, "How is?" But she tells him she's still dead, yet still here. Aldrich explains that the Phoenix King was seeking the location of the ancient pyre. He has seen it and knows which route to take, but their relics are done. Fira tells them that they must get back what's theirs, and after freeing some prisoners, one mentions that if they are looking for Karamas, he is in the North Tower. Fira then asks, who is this Karamas? And Aldrich says that he is the Baron that slew the dragon. In doing so, he relinked the fire, but he was also cursed with an eternity of torment. He was given the name the Phoenix King because his body slowly burns over and over each time, bringing his body back to relive the agony again. It is only the dragonhide armor that he wears, torn from Andalus, that can temper the flame. Just as Aldrich finishes his story, the two arrive in the North Tower, and Fira finds herself standing before Karamas. He tells Fira that she is nothing but a shambling corpse, a hollow thing clinging to the memories of the living. And she tells him that he is the betrayer who abandoned his own order for the undead, leaving them to die while he fled. Karamas attacks by searing the ground around Fira, forcing her to jump, and as she goes towards him, he knocks her away. Once again, she leaps into attack, but this time he grabs her in the air and begins to burn her body. Aldrich calls out to her and throws the dragon's tooth dagger and stabs Karamas in the shoulder. And then he lets go as she tears down his body. Karamas' body begins to shine as he yells out in pain until his body begins to fall to ash. And Fira says that it is done. They have the final relic of Andalus, but she senses that things are still left unsaid. Aldrich looks at her and she says, there is still time. She shall know the truth. After their long journey, they finally reach the end of their travels, the pyre. While walking to where the flame burns, Fira hears the clang of swords behind them, and Aldrich tells her that they are close. They cannot bother with, but she is already gone. Fira sees a knight being attacked by some ogres and comes to his aid in killing them, and as the last one falls, she draws her blade to the knight asking, where did he get that armor? The knight asks her if she does not recognize him, and he tells her that her order was destroyed. He has no right nor honor to wear it. And the knight asks, who is she to speak of honor? The knight says that his name is Jairus, and he knows her name is Fira, and this armor, it is his to wear. Aldrich says that they need to kill this man for he seeks to murder them and stop the ritual, but Fira tells him to go find shelter. She then turns to Jairus, stating that she knows no one by that name, and he tells her, indeed she doesn't. She doesn't even know herself either. The curse wears heavy. In that case, his quest has come for naught. Fira asks what does he mean, and he explains that he was on a quest to seek vengeance for the ruin of his kin. He has tracked them across half the realm in search of them, and now he can see that she is already dead. As the night begins to set, Fira and Jairus sit by the fire and he explains that it is she who burned his kin, burned everyone in Horrormark who succumbed to the curse, and now look at her, ignorant of her own crimes. Fira says that she came here to save them, and Aldrich tells her that they are so close. The words he speaks, though, are false. She would never do such a thing. Slowly, Fira begins to see what she has done. She burned the townspeople. She sent them ablaze to stop the spread of the plague, but the plague reached her anyway, and then she awoke with no memory. From the shadows, Aldrich leaps with a knife towards Jairus, telling him, do not try and stop them. This man seeks to poison your fragile mind. Fira pushes him away, stating, no, it is you, Aldrich, who has been filling my mind with falsehoods. I am a killer. Aldrich says that he did what he must, and Fira then turns back to Jairus, asking what should they do with her now. And he tells her to banish the curse so that no more will have to suffer like him. The three of them gather their strength and they head into the pyre to find the altar of the flame. Aldrich begins his ritual with the relics, and soon from the flame arises Andalus. As the form begins to take shape, the dragon steps forward, telling Fira the dead comes to steal his final breath once more. Andalus flies through the ceiling, bringing Fira with him, and he starts to fly through the air. Soon he swoops down, breathing down on Fira, and she attempts to do it again, but she says that she's sorry and she throws her sword. The sword pierces through Andalus's wing, sending him crashing down to the ground. She jumps up ready to slay the dragon, but she stops, asking, who is she to make the final decision? What gives her the right? Slay the beast to offer a temporary reprieval? A salve but no cure? Aldrich tells her that she must. Do this and she might yet live. And she asks for what? For whom? Carry the burden for what she has done? Aldrich climbs up, stating that if she won't, he will. And as he gets closer, Fira thrusts her sword back into him, telling him that he only thinks of himself. It will be his undoing. But in truth, he has already been undone. Jairus raises his sword to finish him, but Fira stops him, stating his magics will sustain him through a life of torment and undeath. That will be a greater burden. But they must go. Andalus stirs. As they leave, Fira and Jairus go their separate ways, and Andalus returns to the flame. So the cycle is broken. Years of darkness lie ahead, but soon one will come again, and Ishra will live once more. But as for the warrior, she will continue to walk dead among the land of the living. I hope you guys enjoyed this Dark Souls video involving the first comic series. If you want to have more of them, such as Winter's Spite, Tales of Amber, and Legends of the Flame, then please give this video a like and subscribe to the Comicstorian channel, as I love the lore of Dark Souls and we will be doing more of them. I just don't know which one to do next. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time, right here.